Hey everyone, Oldies DJ Matt back. Welcome to episode 2 of my one-off 8-part YouTube video series called An Introduction to Deep Diving into Rock and Roll Music of the 60s and 70s and some 80s. This series is focused on introducing folks to this music who have only been exposed so far through commonly available channels such as classic hits radio, classic album rock radio. Maybe you found a YouTube channel or a Spotify playlist. The resources that are available today are very narrow. They're cherry picking favorites. They're not giving you an exposure into the vast variety and creativity of this wonderful music. So the purpose of this video is I'm going to pick out some albums, I'm going to talk about some lost singles, and I'm going to introduce you to some radio programs available on the internet that will present the music to you the way it was meant to be heard by people who were actually there at the time. The purpose of this video series is to give you a starter kit on your own journey of discovery. So we're going to get started by talking about albums, 7 albums by 5 different performers. And before I get started, just a little precursor. The albums that I'm picking out to present are not necessarily the best albums by a particular artist or the most popular, or certainly they're not based on being my favorites or anything like that. It's all about putting together that starter kit. And that's how the albums are chosen. So we're not going to talk about any truly iconic albums. We're not going to talk about albums like Thriller, Rumors, Sgt. Pepper, The Dark Side of the Moon, Tapestry. These are albums you're going to hear about without my help. So we're going to get started now with a really distinctive singer-songwriter, some say the best lyricist ever, Joni Mitchell. And this is her 1974 album, Court and Spark. This album represented a career change for Joni. Up until this point, this is her 6th album. Up until this point, she stuck with a small setting for her performances in the studio, what some call a folk singer-songwriter setting. So it's acoustic, no rhythm section. A lot of the songs she just performs accompanying herself on guitar or piano, electric piano, dulcimer, performing these songs solo. If you're familiar with the 1973 song "You Turned Me On a Radio," that's about as big an ensemble as she would perform with on record up until this point on her first 5 albums. For Court and Spark, she decided to make a change, and she brings in a band of musicians. Essentially, I would call them a jazzy rock band. So she has electric guitar playing a lot of accent notes in her songs, electric bass, a drummer, a horn section, not too loud in the mix. The album grooves. It has a nice light and breezy sound to it. Not soft, but also not too hard. Joni Mitchell produces her own albums, and she often does her background vocals just by overdubbing her own voice. She's very good at putting together the sound of the album, and starting with Court and Spark, she elevated herself to a more widely enjoyed type of setting. And this resulted in her finally having some success on the pop singles chart. She wasn't really a pop singles artist, but there were 3 big hits coming off of Court and Spark: Raised on Robbery, Help Me, and Free Man in Paris. And after Court and Spark, she continued working with a larger band, an electric band, but experimented with different styles. Sometimes her music, I would say, included experimental chord changes. She starts using a synthesizer in the 80s. She goes off in different directions. But Court and Spark was the transition album and easy to recommend. Now, Joni Mitchell actually had a lot of hits before this. They just did not really chart here highly on the charts at all. Let's see. Both Sides Now, Carrie, Woodstock, Chelsea Morning, Big Yellow Taxi, River. You might hear that one at Christmas time. The Circle Game. I don't know if that was released as a single. That was used in a movie. These songs became very popular for her. They didn't exactly gain her hit single status. And back in the day, album rock radio would play these songs, but modern day classic album rock radio tends to avoid something that's not like real rock and roll. So you're not going to hear most of these songs on your favorite classic album rock station. So you might be interested in this collection, also from Joni Mitchell, called Hits. How do you like that cover? This is a collection that she put together herself of the fan favorites. It contains all the songs that I mentioned before, including the 3 singles on Court and Spark, plus a few others. What do you have? 15 songs altogether. So this is a good way to collect the great Joni Mitchell songs, and I would recommend both of these, Court and Spark, and that came out in 1974, and Hits. I don't know when that one came out, but definitely good sampling of Joni Mitchell. Great performer. Oh, one other thing about Court and Spark. I'm not sure how often she did this, but it's the only Joni Mitchell album I'm aware of where she includes somebody else's composition. There's a song called Twisted that closes the album. It's a bit of a novelty song. My analyst told me I was out of my mind. It was written in the 50s. A few different performers did this song. She just happened to like the song, decided to include it on Court and Spark. So, okay, next we're going to talk about Pink Floyd. This is their 1971 album, Meddle, Meddle. Let's see if I can get the whole album cover here. This is a strange picture. And here is a picture of the band itself in 1971. The guy on the left here is Roger Waters. Now, what most people know about Pink Floyd is their 4 truly iconic albums that came out between 1973 and 1979. Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, not everyone's enamored with that one, and of course The Wall. Those albums are different than the ones they released up until that point. And the reason is because bass player Roger Waters stepped forward and became the group's primary songwriter, the group's sole lyricist, and the creative architect of the group's albums. So up until that point, they were writing their own songs individually and assembling albums, and the albums didn't have a special theme or continuity to them. But starting with Dark Side of the Moon, when Roger took over, the albums suddenly became concept albums, and that changed a lot of the success for Pink Floyd. Unfortunately, after The Wall, Roger and the rest of the guys in the band were not getting along particularly well, and they stopped working together and went their separate ways. But Pink Floyd was always a really good sounding band. The 4 musicians had incredible inter-musician chemistry with each other. Nick Mason, the drummer, introduced the band into a groove. Roger Waters would lock in with that groove. David Gilmour's very lyrical guitar playing, and Rick Wright's innovative keyboard. That is something Pink Floyd always had. And what I like about Meddle is that this album is really the first to include this 70s Pink Floyd sound that everybody came to love in their iconic albums. Before this, they had kind of a 60s sound, and they did some other stuff with orchestration on one of their albums. But this actually sounds somewhat close to the 4 iconic albums, especially the 23-minute long song Echoes, which takes up all of side 2 on the original LP. Echoes is everything you like about 70s Pink Floyd in one long song. There is, I understand, a 7 or 8 minute long edited version of Echoes on a Pink Floyd Best Of compilation, also called Echoes. I cannot imagine that that's any good, because one of the things about Pink Floyd is they patiently go through a passage of music. They can't be rushed. They'll get to the next passage when they're good and ready, and let them finish what they were doing. I can't imagine that doing a chop job on Echoes was anything worthwhile. Side one of the album wasn't too bad either. It starts off with the song that was a bit of a hit on album rock radio back when that was good, a song called One of These Days, and it's followed up by a beautiful, spacey, kind of psychedelic David Gilmour piece, and that's followed up by something interesting by Roger Waters. So, Metal from 1971, highly recommended. Now, if you like Pink Floyd and you also like music from the 60s, especially that early psychedelic sound, Pink Floyd sounded much different in the 60s. And they were psychedelic music innovators. And if you like 60s music, if you're not into 60s music, you might not really enjoy this. But if you like 60s music and you want to hear how Pink Floyd was shaping the future of psychedelic music, their record company put out a compilation called Relics. And this came out in the early 70s. And it's made up of songs from the Pink Floyd's earliest albums, plus a couple non-album singles. Now, I'll warn you ahead of time that this is not what the cover of Relics looks like. This is an American version of Relics that had a different album cover. And if you go through like a used record bin, you might find it with this cover. But if you're looking for a new version of Relics, it will have a different cover. This album is easy to recommend. It contains the group's 1967 breakthrough single, See Emily Play. It also contains two early psychedelic long instrumentals, Interstellar Overdrive and Careful With That Axe Eugene. Remember a Day, done by Rick Wright, written and sung by Rick Wright, could have easily been a hit single. Wonderful collection of songs. I also recommend this one if you like the 60s sound. Pink Floyd, Relics. Okay, the next album I'm going to tell you about is The Association's Greatest Hits. This came out in 1968, and it is the first hit compilation album by this surprisingly hip Southern California band. And as far as I know, the only one where the group members picked out the songs that appear on the album. I don't have that LP anymore. I have a CD box set, and I don't have the cover to show you. But the Association's Greatest Hits contains 10 A-side singles and 3 B-sides and album cuts. So, 13 songs by a group that a majority of oldies fans probably only know 5 of them. Really. Cherish, Never My Love, Windy, Everything That Touches You, and Along Comes Mary. If you were around back in the late 60s, you might be familiar with Time for Living and Six-Man Band. But for most of you, this will be a journey of discovery in itself. And the other songs on this album, you're going to be surprised that they didn't do better. The group released a lot of singles that just did not do nearly as well, and they are all here. And so listening to this album, it's not like listening to a typical greatest hits album, which is hit after hit. This album is like a good album by an act that happens to have 5 big hit singles on it, and the rest of the songs are also pretty good. So the Association, they were obviously influenced a lot by the Beach Boys. I would describe their typical song as California Sunshine Pop. They are kind of unfairly these days thought of as being soft rock because of songs like Never My Love. Not always the case. Six-Man Band is definitely not soft rock. Along Comes Mary's kind of an early psychedelic song with its interesting lyrics and that lovely recorder solo done by Terry Kirkman. And no, we don't know what that song is about. And as recently as the early 2000s, when the surviving members of the band would perform, they would never say what that song was really about. We all have our ideas. But the Association's greatest hits. Oh, there's one of the B-sides is called Requiem for the Masses. That came out in 1966. It was the flip side of Never My Love. And in a way, it sounds like a progressive rock song way ahead of its time. So, the Association's greatest hits. Now, that album, as far as I know, is still available on CD. The record company that currently owns the rights to the Association's music has another CD out called The Essential Association, which contains only the A-side singles. So no Requiem for the Masses on that particular album, which I would consider an essential song. Looking at the song list between the two, I would say that the Association's greatest hits has a better song selection. There is one song on the Essential Association with a weird title called Pandora's Golden Heebie-Jeebies, which is missing from greatest hits. So either of these might be sufficient for you if you are looking for the Association. Definitely worth checking out. Okay, next we're going to go to 1983 for the Eurythmics, and this is their album Touch. And of course, that is Annie Lennox on the front cover. What a singer. And do you remember the name David Stewart? Yeah, the Eurythmics was a duo of Annie and David Stewart. They started out as songwriting partners. They got interested in writing songs together when they were members of a group called the Tourists. They are British, and the Tourists had some success on the British singles chart. And they enjoyed writing songs together, and they were both inventive. They had an imagination. And they became close friends, and they came to the conclusion in the early 80s that they could better turn their song ideas into the records the way they wanted them to sound by recording them themselves rather than giving the songs to the other members of the band and having the individual musicians interpret the songs their own way. So the Eurythmics, that's how the Eurythmics was born. David Stewart is a real pro in the studio, and they built their songs by overdubbing layers, and they came out exactly the way these two wanted. So you have Annie Lennox on lead vocals and keyboards, David Stewart on some backing vocals, guitar, electric bass, and I think some keyboards. I understand on Touch, Annie Lennox plays most of the keyboards, and David behind the controls in the studio. And the three hits off of the album Touch, each one is quite different. Who's That Girl is a sad song with a haunting melody and very beautiful lyrics. That was followed by the synth pop song Here Comes the Rain Again, which is backed by the London Philharmonic Orchestra. And that was followed by Right By Your Side, an upbeat kind of Caribbean sounding song. So besides the variety of the different kinds of songs and Annie Lennox's amazing ability to interpret each one quite differently and beautifully, David in the studio would add little flings and dings and sound effects and transitions and background noises that made many of the songs on this album sound kind of like, I don't know, a 70s psychedelic progressive rock reinterpreted for the 80s. And putting all that together makes the album Touch a really enjoyable listen. So, the Eurythmics, 1983, Touch. And for our final album, we're going to go to the sunny shores of Jamaica, Bob Marley and the Wailers live. This album came out in 1975, and it comes from concerts that were recorded in England. Nice picture back there. So 7 songs on this album, running 6 or 7 minutes long each. Bob Marley, as a performer, really is an electrifying stage performer. You can feel it listening to this record. As a live band, the Wailers sound much better than they do confined to a studio. So this music is thoroughly enjoyable, and I would say that this particular album, with the songs being chosen by the man himself, is the true Bob Marley sound. There is a compilation that came out posthumously called Legend, the best of Bob Marley and the Wailers. Great songs on that, but those songs were all hit singles. I believe the running order of the songs on Legend was selected based on picking out the singles that charted the highest on the British singles chart, although Legend includes the full-length album versions. So that's the commercial side of Bob Marley on Legend. On this album, you have what I think is the real Bob Marley, and you'll hear the protest lyrics, them belly full, but we hungry. Get Up, Stand Up. Now that is a well-known Bob Marley and the Wailers classic. The version of that appears on Legend is the original studio recording, and compared to the live version here on this album, that studio recording sounds like a really rough rehearsal. It is relatively soulless compared to the version that appears on this album. So very easy to recommend this as your first Bob Marley and the album, Bob Marley and the Wailers album. Skip over Legend, get this one instead. I promise you it is beautiful, it is a good time, and you'll get to find out what all the fuss about Bob Marley and the Wailers is about. Now, in the event that you actually have this record already, or you get this record and you really like it, and you're wondering, did he do another album like this in his lifetime? Another live album? He did. This one came out 3 years later. It's called Babylon by Bus. It is a double LP. Again, the songs chosen by Marley himself. This has a little trick. It's a double LP, but if you pull the inside cover out, inside sleeve out, you get a different picture. So, Bob Marley and the Wailers, live from 1975, and if you want more, Babylon by Bus from 1978. Okay, now we're going to talk about the lost hit of this episode. Did you all look up Tema Harbor by Mary Hopkin from the last episode? I hope so. That is a great song, isn't it? Would you believe it only peaked at number 39 on the charts? The lost hits that I'm picking out, none of these went higher than number 20. So hopefully, even if you had a decent oldies station around, there's a good chance that these songs you have not heard yet. And I have another one for you this week. This one came from 1968. It's by a group called the Magic Lanterns. The song is called Shame, Shame. Please follow the YouTube link or on my social media page, both called Oldies DJ Matt. Please follow that link to find Shame, Shame on YouTube. In this case, it's very specific. I'm pointing toward the original mono single because there is a bad stereo mix of this song out there. Shame, Shame is classic 1968 pop. It's a little loud. It's got great harmonies. It's got great pop hooks. It's got heartbreak. It's got it all. It's what 1968 was about. So your homework assignment, check out Shame, Shame by the Magic Lanterns. Oh, this one got all the way to number 29. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to close out by talking about two DJs who have oldies shows that you're going to want to know about. And we're going to start with Tom Natoli. Now, last episode I told you about popgoldradio.com, and I also mentioned the Don Tandler Time Machine program, which is Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Tom Natoli is another DJ on Pop Gold Radio, and he does more involved programs. I call them blockbusters. He does longer programs, and he will do time machine episodes that start earlier in the day. So I mentioned this last time, but when you're interested in checking out programs on Pop Gold Radio, you need to go to the station homepage and look at the schedule, because sometimes the time machine starts earlier. And Tom Natoli also hosts some programs on Wednesdays. Tom's programs are going to include a lot of trivia and information about the songs. Every song you're going to hear a story about, and you're going to learn things that are going to. It's really fascinating. His countdowns are also different. He will do, for example, this is 2026, so during this coming summer, he will do 3 specials, the summer songs of 1966, 76, and 86. I also understand he's going to be doing a special, the top 1,500 songs of the 60s. I don't know how many Time Machine episodes he's going to divide that into. His programs are very educational. They are expertly well prepared. There is nothing like them anywhere on contemporary revisiting of oldies music. So definitely check out Tom Natoli's programs on Pop Gold Radio. Also, he does this thing called The List. These are held on Wednesdays. The List is an opportunity to revisit songs from a specific date in history, or a specific month, I guess. But he invites everyone to choose the ranking themselves, and we look at how most of the time we find that songs that at the time may not have mattered that much or charted that heavily have suddenly become lost oldies that we love. And we also find out that some songs that we can't understand why they became so popular these days are very forgettable. So the list is also something you can participate in. So popgoldradio.com. The last program I want to tell you about is on WTSR. It is a station coming out of Trenton, New Jersey at 91.3. You can also visit the website WTSR.org, and you can stream the station on typical streaming apps or streaming sites such as TuneIn. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because I've gone to WTSR a few times and found the site was not working, but the stream was still active if I went to TuneIn. Sunday afternoons at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, check out the Solid Gold Review Show with Joe Accardi. This program covers music from the 50s, 60s, and some 70s. So you're going to hear a lot of older music on Joe's program. You're going to hear a lot of doo-wop. You're going to hear old groundbreaking rockers from the 50s, such as Fats Domino, Little Richard. You're going to hear Connie Francis, Bobby Vee. He also does this feature called the Artist Spotlight, where he'll play a lot of deep selections from different artists, often artists that you only would otherwise hear only 1 or 2 songs from. Artists like Bobby Darin, Jackie Wilson, Gene Pitney. His show is very informal, and he knows a great deal about the music. You'll learn a lot about it. He tries to mix old songs that you haven't heard before as well as favorites. So, the Solid Gold Review Show, Sunday afternoons, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on WTSR. Okay, that concludes episode 2, and I will be back with episode 3. I hope you can join me. The new video should be posted in about 2 weeks. Peace and love.